Hi guys. It's been a little while since I've made a video for you all. I hope that since the last one, you all have been very well and that you've reached out if you've wound up having any questions for me or if you've needed any help. It's been kind of like quiet in my email, so I'm hoping and assuming that everything's been totally fine. But so you guys know, I'm still around, even if you have some like assignments needing grading that are kind of collecting dust. I'm still here for questions and whatnot. So again, I hope you all have been well. So I'm coming to you with a writing project for video, which will be the very possibly the final video that I make for you guys because we're pretty much at the end of the class at this point. Classes, face-to-face classes are done, more or less on the 13th, at least in Sellersburg. So yeah, this might be it. You've made it this far. The few of you that are left, it's a testament definitely to your will and your stamina, and I congratulate you on that big time. So I'm here to say, after you've done a little bit of work on your writing project for drafts, if you haven't done a draft yet but you're planning to, um, I'm here hopefully early enough to have a little bit of an impact on how you do on those final drafts. So I've read enough of these things in years past, semesters past, to know that there are some very common missteps that people do make. So I almost don't have to read rough drafts to know what these missteps or these mistakes are. I'm going to talk about those. Of course, you guys are going to get some personalized feedback from me on your rough drafts early this week, Monday or Tuesday, along with the other grades that, again, I've mentioned are collecting dust. I know I'm behind on those. But the thing that counts the most, I'm going to do first. Your rough draft of writing project 4. Yeah, so before I grade those, I wanted to just come to you guys and talk about these general missteps that people make. So first thing, and then have you, of course, the idea, the hope, is that you'll go back through your rough draft, you'll comb through that and look to see if these missteps apply to you in your own draft. First thing, I always notice when going over third, like rough and final drafts of writing project 3 and then rough drafts of writing project 4, is that many of my students are thinking way too generally about their topics. For example, and I'll use these examples in the paper that don't really apply to your class theme, but they work as examples. So an example is that someone might think and write generally about transgender issues, racism, discrimination, by writing papers whose main idea is this thing is a problem and leave it at that. So transgender people face a lot of issues, or racism is a problem, or discrimination is a problem. That's not quite enough, though. You don't want to just leave it at that. I want you all to think about what very specifically you are discussing by taking what you proposed you would talk about in writing project 3, and your rough draft of writing project 4, and then adding an and statement to it. So you take what you were talking about and add an and statement that says, like, what about that subject you're going to discuss and argue. To have a properly narrowed topic, you can think of asking and answering a few really general questions about your topic, but like answering them as a collective. Like, think about answering them in a single statement. So think about basically think about answering like the main question words, like who, what, when, where, why, how. Who are you talking about specifically? Who is involved in your subject or your topic? What are you talking about specifically? When is your topic relevant and occurring? Where? A lot of student writers, when writing project 4, they'll write as though they're taking it for granted, that their readers will just assume that this is taking place now in the United States. But there's nothing to say that you couldn't be writing about like 1956 Japanese society. You have to be clear about who you're talking about, when, where, what, why, how. To help you come up with like some and phrases that'll help narrow your paper, I have some examples. So instead of saying racism is bad, which we know by now, hopefully, discrimination is bad. Transgender people face a lot of discrimination in society. You want to say something not quite so obvious. So here's what that looks like if you put an and statement on it, at least with the topic of racism. You could talk about racism and the portrayal of non-white people in TV series in the United States now. You could talk about racism and government policy decisions in the US now. You could talk about transgender discrimination and the workplace in larger cities in the United States now. You could talk about discrimination and women, discrimination against women, and the American home life in the 1950s versus now, and make an argument about that. So you might have noticed when I was going through those and statements, I was also answering those question words like when and who and where. So you want to think of it this way. If you're just talking about racism or you're just talking about discrimination, you have to talk about everything regarding those things, because what you say you're going to talk about in your paper, you really have to cover like 360 degrees around. In reality, though, because you don't have that much time or space in which to do this last writing project, you have to be more specific so that you don't just ramble and jump all over the place about something that's way too broad and that your readers won't feel connected to, because they'll be like, what's all this about anyway? Think about what kind of, if we're talking about racism or discrimination, what kind of racism, what kind of discrimination, who is affected by it, when and where. I also want you all to be thinking as you write about the kinds of argument papers you're writing. I'm going to give you 3 categories that will hopefully help you think about the overall goal of your argument. And in thinking about the goal of your argument, what you're thinking about is like really the purpose. Like, what is my paper for? What am I trying to do in it? If you don't have in mind what your goal is, there's a good chance you're not going to meet one. Because you don't have one. You don't know what it is. And there's a better chance that you'll kind of like meander all over the place. So you want a goal. The hope here is that if you have this overall goal in mind, it'll just, the paper will be more focused and organized. So 3 categories that you might think about putting your paper into, like one of these 3. You can think of your paper as a problem solution paper, a problem origin paper, or a cause and effect paper. So you want to ask yourself, is my overall goal in this paper to describe a problem and propose a solution to it? That would be problem solution. To explain the origin of a problem, in other words, where it came from. That's a problem origin paper. Those are tough, just FYI. Or to explain the cause and effect relationship of something, a cause and effect paper. For example, what is the unintended effect of catcalling, or how catcalling is a kind of discrimination when it's something that might seem so innocent societally. Like, what are the larger implications of like calling out to women on the street, for example. So when you have in mind that goal, that thing you're trying to prove, and then you put it in that category, and then you attach that and statement to it, you suddenly have a clearer purpose, and you have a more narrow paper, and actually from there things get easier in writing your paper, because you have a better purpose. You actually know what you're writing toward. I highly recommend it. Even if you like think you have some idea of what your goal is or what type of paper you have, actually articulating it, like telling somebody or writing it down, is really good for you in your paper. So please give it a shot. I also want to let you all know, when you're thinking about the scope of your papers, like the purpose, the goal, what do you want them to achieve, you don't have to like heal the world and make it a better place. if we're being real, you can't solve like global problems in your English 101 paper, basically. Like, you can't solve like global climate change, sexism in the workplace, transgender discrimination, just for example, in English 111. These are like really tall orders, and I feel like if these issues still exist, it's because nobody else's great ideas have worked out yet. So, like, no offense, yours aren't going to work out either. So, you want to take any grand plans you have to prove something really huge and say, that's kind of a tall order. I'm going to dial it back a little bit and just do what I can. You want to be more practical. So, maybe instead of trying to heal the world or come up with some grand solution to what seems like a larger than life problem, you can instead think about doing your part. Think about this paper as doing your part by maybe trying to come up with a practical solution to a difficult problem within a particular community. All right, lastly, before I give this like list of things not to forget, I'll say a couple of things about organization and just name a few pitfalls that you want to try to avoid in your rough drafts where organization is concerned. So organization-wise, it's important to build your case, which is your argument, with main points. Typically, this is not a hard and fast rule, but it can help you, I guess it can help you think about how to, I don't know how to put it, like it can help like lay the tracks of your paper if you do it this way. Like, this is like a kind of a regimented way to think about your paper if you're one of those people who's just not great with organization. So if you think about your paper as being organized around your main points, where your main points are your reasons for thinking that your thesis is correct, then that might keep your paper nice and tight, and you keep it to one main point per body paragraph. Try to give each body paragraph a task and stay on that one task in that body paragraph. And then make sure that each main point is backed up by research. So each body paragraph has research that backs up that main point. And then you want to connect that research to your discussion of your thesis to help reinforce it. And each body paragraph, again, if you're not great with organization, can follow pretty much the same flow, the same formula. You can think of, again, a main point as a reason that you're right. So the whole paper is just organized around reasons that you're right with research to back you up. And that is writing project 4 in essence. Again, you don't want to make more than one main point per body paragraph, because if you do, that's basically the definition of losing focus within that paragraph. As far as how much room your research should take up, this seems to be a point of difficulty or confusion for people. So when you're thinking about like how much of you and your voice and your discussion should be in there versus how much research, just think of striking something like 60-40, 70-30, 75-25 balance, where the higher number is your discussion and the lower number is your actual research. Remember that you are the one making an argument in your paper. Your research is just there to back you up. So if you don't take up at least half of your paper, you and your voice, it likely means that you're spending maybe too much energy into stuffing your paper with research, what I call a research dump, and like not enough time discussing the paper. So remember, again, the paper is like written, orchestrated, governed by you. Your research is just there to back you up. Okay. Finally, some pitfalls to avoid, some things I don't want you to get caught up in, some things I don't want you to forget. Okay, so please take care with these, and then I'll let you go. 1, not taking a strong enough stance. This is where having a narrow topic comes in. Make sure you get your topic nice and narrow and specific, and then you want to have a clear, debatable argument that you defend in every paragraph of your paper. So if your research or your thesis is easily answered by research, it's not debatable enough. So you want to test the debatability of it, and you want you want to kind of try and think of it as like something not everybody would agree with, like something you're going to have to fight for a little bit. Next thing, again, I've already talked about this, being too broad in your discussion. Like, just basically don't be Captain Obvious, and remember that this is not an informative paper. You're not just writing to give people a whole bunch of research about something. You're using research and pitting research in conjunction with and against like other research to help you build a case for something. Again, that not everybody would agree with. Next thing to be careful about is arguing for or doing the impossible. Remember, your paper can't solve problems associated with poverty, but you can think of some practical thing that you can help with. Next thing, a lot of people have too much background information. Background information is where you give a whole bunch of information about your topic basically before you argue. And sometimes people like accidentally end up making their papers all background, all context. Like, I need you to know the history of this, all of these definitions, this is everything you need to know about my topic. And then I'm like, but where's the argument? Think about how much background information you actually need for people to get a baseline understanding of your topic. You really only need that. Like, you don't need the whole history. You don't need to know, like, everybody involved, all of these things. Just, what do I, as a reader, need to understand before I can get on board with your topic? Just give me that. So I tell my students, really, you want to limit background information to 1 to 2 paragraphs and then get into your argument. Okay. Next pitfall. Just 2 more, including this one. You don't want to forget the counter argument. If you haven't looked in your textbook to read about the counter argument or anything else, you want to make sure that you are taking a good look at research that helps build a counter argument. Like, look for research that directly contradicts you and then think about why it's wrong. You want to think about any reasoning that someone might come up with for why your thesis could be wrong. So what a counter argument does, is it gives you a chance to build a stronger case by looking at your opposition, someone who disagrees with you, and saying, nope, I'm still right, but saying why. And if you can, coming up with research that like contradicts that counter argument. So counter arguments basically like reinforce your paper in ways that research and reasoning in direct support of your thesis can't, because they're in direct support of your thesis. Last but not least, do not put sources in your works cited page that you didn't use in your paper, and vice versa. Don't put sources in your paper that you don't then name in your works cited page. This is a form of plagiarism. Be very careful about it, pretty please. And also, I recommend last minute before you turn in your writing project 4 that you comb through and make sure you didn't forget any in-text citations and you didn't forget quotation marks. I don't discriminate about whether someone plagiarized intentionally or accidentally. I call it as I see it. So I'm asking you to just be extra careful with that. It's a bummer to find it because it pretty much outright fails a paper, and I don't want that to happen to you at all. If you have any questions about that, I hope that you'll let me know. But it seems like everybody's doing okay with that, or at least they were as of the rough draft of writing project 3. Okay, this is it. It's your last paper for the course. Give it all you got, and I hope you'll reach out if I can help you in the last stretch. I hope you all take care. I wish you the best of luck. And I'll be coming to you again soon with some grades, with some comments. And if I don't come to you again in a video, it's been nice, I guess, sending you my face. I hope that you all take care now, take care in the future, and reach back out to me even when you're no longer in the course if you need help with anything. All right, bye guys. Good luck with writing project 4. Good luck.